our mech. So we've got the geometry mirrored over to the other side, but right now it's just a shell. There's no thickness to it. We don't want to totally fill it in, but we do want to have some interior thickness to this. So let's start to do a little bit of modeling on these polygons. The first thing I want to do is create this sort of inset piece right along the front. And so I'm going to right click, go to edges, and then I'm going to shift select all the edges right on the front there. Okay, let's go to edit mesh, and let's go down to the edge section, and let's do an extrude. I'm going to change my axis to world axis and just push them straight back in the Z. So something like that. Now with those edges still selected, I'm going to go in and go to edge, and let's go into bridge, and let's open up the options for bridge. I want to do a linear path, but I don't want 5 divisions. I just want 1 division. So we'll do a bridge, and that'll create new geometry that extends across and connects that up. So now we have that sort of inset piece there. Next, let's bridge across some of the geometry underneath here. So let's start right here. I'm going to click on this edge, and then I'm going to shift double click on the edge where I want that loop to stop. So right here. So you can see what that did. It selected all of the edges between the 2 edges that I picked. I'll do the same thing here. Shift click that one so we keep the other side selected, and then shift double click on that edge. And that'll select just those edges, so we're not selecting the edges on the bottom or the back. Now let's bridge across this. And for this one, I want to create a few divisions there, so I'm going to go, let's go to edge, bridge, and let's maybe add 8 or so divisions. And you can see that bridged across from one side over to the other, kind of filling in those the gaps underneath. All right. The next thing that we want to do is kind of fill in the rest of the holes, or the remaining holes. So we've got a hole in the back and a hole right here, and then also up here we have a hole. Let's go ahead and double click on this edge. Let's do an extrude. I'm going to change my axis here and just kind of scale this in and push it back into the surface and down a little bit. So just creating a little bit of that thick sort of rim right there. We don't actually have to fill it in because we're going to have this geometry sitting inside of it. For these holes, we can go to edges, double click, and it'll select the entire border. Let's go to mesh. Let's fill hole under shape, and that puts an n-gon right in line there. All right. And now we can start to connect some of these lines up a little bit. So if we take a look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 edges in the middle. And here we have 8, right? But if we want to stay quads, we actually need 7 because we don't count the ones on the ends. So if I draw this across, just thinking in my mind, draw this across from this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because if we draw from here, we create a triangle. So what we can do here is begin to modify the number of points, the number of lines we have down here. And the number of lines we have isn't really that important underneath, because what's really important is that we get the shape on the outside. The underneath is going to be covered up. And so we can adjust this to fit the needs of the really important part. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as we talked about earlier. So we need to get rid of one. So let's first insert one in the middle. So we'll go to the Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop Tool. And this will allow us to insert an edge loop. Now we want it to be right in the center, so we're going to choose multiple edge loops, but we're only going to set the number to 1. Now, if we click right in the center here, it's going to put it right in the middle. Then if I double click on that edge, shift, double click on the edge right next to it, I want to hit Control Delete. That'll get rid of not only the edges, but also the points that are associated with them. Now, let's choose a tool to help us draw and connect across this geometry. There are a couple of these. Let's use the multi-cut tool. You can see it's part of the modeling toolkit. We can come in here, activate that, and then you can see it really gives us some nice highlights on what it's going to do if we click. So we'll start at this point and just draw across to this point, and it connects it with an edge. You can hit enter to complete that edge. We can do the same thing over here. And right here to kind of connect all those together. We'll take this one over here, and let's do the same thing on the other side. And right here, you can also right click to end that. And so we filled in that line. Now we just have to do the same thing up here on the front. Okay. Let's kind of narrow this down a little bit by selecting a couple of these edges and these two edges, and let's just do a quick bridge. Let's take our divisions down to 0. That serves to kind of fill in that geometry, and then we can use our fill to, there we go, to fill in these, and then our multi-cut tool to fill in where we want that to go. So I'm going to take these edges right here and kind of move them up. Let's use our world move axis. Going to move them up just so that it is, the shape is a little bit more even there. Okay. Now we have 1 point on this side, and we have 2 or 3 on this side. So we kind of need to figure out how we want to draw that out. Well, we can connect these up fairly easily. So let's go back to our multi-cut tool, and we'll just draw across here. And oops, let me undo that. Slipped a little bit. There we go. Draw across there. And then sometimes, rather than adding geometry, we can just take these and let's go to Edit Mesh, Merge Components. And that'll merge those together. If you want to repeat the thing that you just did, hit G on your keyboard and it'll do that again. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got quads down there in a place that is not really, we're not really going to see. And so we can kind of tessellate that just to make sure that everything is connected up.